Hey guys, welcome to this fourth installment of our Sketchup series here on Combs Design. In the first three episodes, we talked about the 6 most essential tools, in my opinion, to using SketchUp. However, we talked about them in a very theoretical sense. We just manipulated some basic boxes. Today I'm going to show you a real-world example in a project I'm actually working on right now of how we can create an entire project with just these 6 tools. Let's jump right in. Right now I am in a desktop version of SketchUp. For some reasons that we won't get into right this second, I chose to use this instead of the online free version, but everything I've done here could absolutely be done in the free version. This is a set of cabinets that I am building for my garage. It's a basic miter station. And believe it or not, this was entirely built out of just the 6 tools that we learned in the last 3 videos. Now we're going to hop over to SketchUp Free Online, and I'm going to recreate a small portion of this and show you step by step how I personally went about building this. There are multiple ways to do these things, and there are probably some easier ways, but I want to show you how powerful these first 6 tools are before we move on to more advanced tools. Back in SketchUp Free, you can see that I have done nothing so far. We just have our default woman here. First thing I'm going to do is hit the space bar, select her, and hit delete. Once again, you can see all my keystrokes in the bottom left, and any measurements I define will be in the bottom right. The first piece I'm creating here will be a vertical panel. We will have 2 of them that create our sides, and once we define those, we'll start creating the rest of the box. The first thing I'm going to do is hit O for orbit, and we're going to move over here, and I'll hold shift and pan over. So we are kind of looking at the green and the blue axes here. We kind of want to look at our Y and our Z plane to create this side of the box. First thing I'm going to do is take my line tool. We can either click here or hit L. And I am going to make this cabinet 24 inches deep. So I will start to pull out my line. I can simply type 24 and hit enter. I also know I want this cabinetry to be 36 inches tall. With the line tool still selected, I can begin to pull this line up on the blue axis, hit 3/6 for 36, hit enter, and I have my back piece. I will continue this box, and I will come over here parallel with the green axis and just click. And I'm going to do something different on this last line. I want to have a sort of kick plate that is at the very bottom of this. So there'll be a little recessed square that'll be 2 inches by 2 inches. The way I'm going to do this is begin to pull my line down, and I'm going to snap it to the blue axis. However, instead of making this 36 inches long, I will make this 34 inches long, and you'll see that it doesn't quite connect. Now, to continue this kick plate, I'm going to drag my line parallel to the green axis, hit 2 for 2 inches, and then come down another 2 inches. And just like we did with the boxes, you can see it created a face here, even though this is a more irregular shape. To clean up this drawing, what I want to do is zoom in, and I have this initial little line segment here. To clean this up, I will hit the space bar for the select tool. And now when I select this, because there is this intersecting line, it has split our first line up where this intersects. So I'm selecting the first 2 inches of this line, and I can hit delete. And just like that, we have created the profile of our side panel. Now this is a 2-dimensional shape. It is flat, right? We are just on 2 planes here. This is going to be built out of 3/4 inch plywood. So to make this in SketchUp, I will hit P for the push-pull tool. I can select this face, and I can click, and I can start pulling out. Now I can make this 3/4 inch by either clicking 0.75 in the bottom, or I could also do this by typing in 3 divided by 4, which is the fractional equivalent of 3/4 inch. We have created our first panel, And I want to go ahead and duplicate this. So if you remember in our last lesson, I can highlight this by first hitting the space bar and getting my pointer or select tool. I can click and drag over the whole shape. Then I can right click, make component, and we will call this vertical panel. And you see here, this is now selected as a single component. We're going to make one set of cabinets here, so one single cabinet with some drawers in it. It's basically going to be a single section of what I'd created in the miter station that I showed you at the beginning of the video. This means we need another one of these components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and I'm going to hit Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. Move my pointer kind of out here into space, click Command V, and I have a second panel. And I'm just going to place this out in space for a minute. If I use the O tool, I can orbit around and see these are not in line, and this panel is obviously not where I want it. But if you remember in the last lesson, I can click in two different points and connect these together. So what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit, hit M for the move tool, and I'm going to click this point at the top of our little kick plate. I'm going to click that, zoom out, and I'm going to begin to drag this over to my other panel. And if I zoom in here, I can put it in line with this other endpoint on the first component, and it snaps to it. I will go ahead and click that, and now you will see these are perfectly flush. I like putting components next to each other in this way because I know on all the planes they're in line. What I can do from here is I can take the distance that I want these to be separated by, and I can begin to drag this over. I will hit M for the move tool, select my component, and I can begin to drag this on the red axis. In this example, we want these two partitions to be, let's say, 18 inches apart. So what I can do is click 1/8, and I am defining this as 18 inches on the red axis in the direction that I'm moving. I can hit enter, and these are now placed 18 inches apart. And just like that, we have our very first piece of this panel. The next thing I want to create is our kick plate that goes here across the bottom. To do this, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to define this kick plate based off of existing components. I will hit L for my line tool. I will click, and I want this kick plate to be flush along this line right here, so I will make a new line. I know this is going to be 3/4 of an inch deep because I'm using plywood, so I can type in 0.75. I can continue to drag my line up 2 inches, and I don't even have to enter 2 inches. You could see as I pull this up, it snaps in line with my first point. So I'll just snap it in line, click, and I can drag my last part of the line over and click. And just like that, we have created a new box here. If I hit P for my push-pull tool, you can see I can select this piece and begin to drag this face out. In my last step, I made these pieces 18 inches apart. So, oops, I'm gonna undo that. I accidentally clicked. If I zoom in, I can click, begin to drag this out, and if I type in 18 and define that value, you will see I now have made a kick plate. While I'm here, I want to go ahead and define that as a component. I'll hit my space bar, click and drag to highlight, right click, say make component, and I'll call this kick plate. You can see how easily we're beginning to use these basic tools and basic shapes to start making a more complex drawing. The next piece I want to create is my bottom panel. We're going to do this in the exact same way that we just made the kick plate. So I'm going to zoom in here, hit L for my line tool, and I know I want my bottom panel to start here. I will drag it out in line and I can snap to the edge of this component. I will click. I will come up along my blue axis. And this time I'm going to type in 3 divided by 4. I have my point. The line tool is still selected. I will drag across, click, come down to complete my box, click. And just like that, I have created another face. If I hit P once again, I can select this face and begin to pull it out. I will type in 18 inches to define that value. And you will see our cabinet is really taking shape. Now, typically in a cabinet like this, I would make some rear supports, but for this example, I won't waste your time and we will continue on. Now that we've made the basic kind of framework of our cabinet, we're going to go ahead and make drawer fronts. When I make cabinetry in SketchUp, I make the drawer boxes separate and I put them off to the side so they're easy to see when I'm building the project. However, I make the cabinet fronts or the drawer fronts and I put them in place where they're going to be. So let's go ahead and start that process. Back here in SketchUp, we have the framework of our box. And before we move on, I want to do one thing, and that is select, click, and make this bottom panel a component. Now we're going to go ahead and start making these cabinet fronts, and I will show you a very easy way to do that. I know I want my fronts to be 6 inches tall and have a 1/8 inch reveal. Now to figure out how wide these are going to be, I will hit T for my tape measure, and I will measure the entire width of the cabinet, which is 1 foot 7.5 inches, which is to be expected because we have an 18-inch bottom panel plus 2 3/4 inch side panels. That 18 plus 1.5 is 19.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is hit my space bar and select out of that. And out here, I am going to hit L for the line tool. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag across 19.5 inches. I'm going to drag up on my blue axis 6 inches. Going to drag across until we are at 19.5 inches. And then I'm going to complete my face. The next thing I'm going to do is hit P for the push-pull tool. Click, and I'm going to pull this out 0.75 inches. And now I have created this shape that will be our drawer front. Before I move this into place, I'm going to go to our select tool, click and drag, make this a component and call this drawer front 6 inch. And I want to move this into place on my cabinet. So what I'm going to do is hit M for the move tool. I'm going to select this rear bottom point and begin to move this. And I selected the rear bottom point because I know I want that to be flush with this point on the cabinet here. I can click. And now I have a drawer front in place. The next thing I'm going to do is go back to my select tool by hitting space, clicking this to select it, Command C or Control C on a PC, and Command V, and I have a second drawer box. Now you will see by default this front left corner is selected, so what I can do is actually place this, and sorry that this text is in the way, but I will place this against this corner. And it went corner to corner right here. And to get my 1/8 inch reveal, I can click and start pulling up along the blue axis and just hit 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, and hit enter. And you will see I now have my 1/8 of an inch gap that I want. I'm going to go ahead and do that 2 more times so I have a total of 4 drawers. Another thing I actually could do, and I'll show you, is I can hit my spacebar for select. I can select both of these components, and I want to really quickly be sure I didn't select my panel on accident. Okay. And I can copy both of these components and do Control C, Control V, and place this right up where it's butting against my second panel or second drawer front. Click. Once again, hit M for my move tool. Both of these are still selected. I can click, begin to pull up on my blue axis, type 0.125, and very quickly you see that I have 4 drawer fronts. Now, unfortunately, I made a mistake. I made these all 3/4 inch material. However, I want these to be 1/2 inch material. But that's really easy to fix. I can click any one of these drawer fronts, and I'll double click so I'm selecting this component. I can hit P for the push-pull tool. And if I start to edit this one, you see it selects all of them. So I will start to pull this back, and I want to pull this back 1/4 of an inch. I'll say 0.25, hit enter, and I have just now reduced all of these by 1/4 of an inch. I can use my space and hit select, or to go to my select tool and click out of that, and I've edited all of these. Also, if I realize, well, I don't want my cabinet to be this tall, I can quite easily use the select tool, double click this partition. I'll have to come up here so I can see the face, hit P for the push pull, click my top face, and I can pull this down so it is right in line, or just right above, because I want a reveal of my top drawer. And I can click out of that, and just like that, I have edited my cabinet. The last thing I want to do is create a top piece for this whole cabinet. To do this, I will first go to my orbit tool, hold shift so I can pan over, and I will take some measurements. I know I want my top panel to go from the back all the way to covering this drawer front, all the way across the side, which I already know is 19.5 inches. So I can hit T for my tape measure, and I can take this measurement. And because this is a 2-foot deep panel, or 2-foot deep cabinet with a 1/2 inch drawer front in front of it, it makes sense that this is 2 feet or 24.5 inches deep. So the last thing I will do is I will click out of this, hit L for my line tool, click and drag on my green axis. I will call this 24.5 inches. I will make this 19.5 inches wide. I will pull this forward 24.5 inches and come across and connect that. Now I'm going to use 3/4 of an inch material for this top. So I'll hit P for push pull, click, pull this up, 3 divided by 4, enter, spacebar to select this as a component, or to select these pieces, right click, make component, top panel, enter. And very simply, I'm going to connect these on the back side because it would be difficult to put this in the right spot with this minor discrepancy because of my 1/8 inch reveal. So I'm going to come to the back of my cabinet, hit M for the move tool, select this point. This will snap to where I want it. so I can orbit around. Back to the move tool, and I can link those together. And that actually showed another great thing about SketchUp. I was in the move tool. I needed to orbit. I was able to hit O for orbit. And when I hit M to go back to the move tool, I was still in the same operation I was in before I moved. Just like that, you will see we have our cabinet here. Now, really simply, if I need multiple of these cabinets, I can make this whole group of components a component. Command C, Command V. And now I have two of these cabinets. If I want to put them side by side, I can just click my endpoints. And like that, I created this whole set of cabinet with just 6 tools. I know this was a little bit of a longer video, but I think it's really important to see how all of these tools work together. I hope this was insightful, and I hope you stick around for the 5th installment of the SketchUp series, where we will begin to start exploring other tools where we can make more advanced shapes. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will catch you guys on the next one.